Hello and welcome back to Live from Paris. It's time now for a look at all today's top business news with our business editor, Owen Fairclough, who's in the hot seat now. Hi, Owen. So, first trading day of the new quarter and some record gains, perhaps.
It's been a great first quarter, Lorna. Many world markets, in fact, have erased all of those losses just in the first 3 months of this year that they had during 2011. Very much a year to forget on the markets. But the European markets, as you say, opening the start to the week in pretty positive territory. All that is, apart from the IBEX in Spain, you can see why there are concerns that this country's borrowing costs are becoming unsustainable once again. A sort of footnote at the moment in that Eurozone crisis, the IBEX down. Just to put some of those gains into perspective for you, if we look at the gains that these European markets have made over the first 3 months of the year, you can see the DAX is the big winner there in Frankfurt, up 18% so far this year. Paris, a little bit behind it, and London, some more modest gains, but indeed London has wiped out most of the losses it had. But there I put at the bottom there, you can see the IBEX is the only one of those four big markets to actually lose in the first quarter, down 6.5%. And that's partly what's driving these concerns that this country really isn't reforming its economy fast enough for the rest of the Eurozone. Just to mention the Asian markets as well. Again, the Nikkei up nearly 20% for the first quarter, ending the day a little bit more modestly perhaps, ending the day around a third of a percent up. The Shanghai Composite is closed for a public holiday, I think, for the next couple of days at least as well.
Okay, well, let's move on now because the future of India's Kingfisher is looking increasingly shaky. Pilots from the airline have threatened to walk out over months of unpaid wages. It's the latest twist in the demise of an airline that's never turned a profit and has more than $1 billion of debts. Natasha Butler has the latest.
Barely a day passes in India without there being seemingly more bad news for Kingfisher as it battles for survival. Now, more than 100 Kingfisher staff have actually said they're going to go on strike. They're mainly pilots, mainly engineers, unless they're paid. They haven't received their salaries for 4 months. And they say unless Kingfisher boss Vijay Mallya resolves the situation this morning, India time, they're just not going to go to work. It's the latest blow for this airline that's already had to ground dozens of planes, cancel dozens of flights, slash its summer schedule, and next week they're even going to have to cancel all their international flights to 8 different destinations.
That was Natasha Butler reporting from New Delhi for us. Well, things aren't much happier here, closer to home, with Air France. Air traffic controllers are striking in Orly, which means that Air France has been, Orly Airport, I should say, that's Paris's second airport. That means that many Air France services will be cancelled this Monday. That's once again going to eat into the bottom line for a company that's already had to write off millions in losses over the past 12 months. So it's time to reorganise. Luke Shrego has the story.
Air France is planning for some stormy weather, with the French national carrier's parent group Air France KLM posting net losses of more than €800 million in 2011. The company's looking to spur both growth and profits. Air France has already frozen salaries and hirings and shut down routes in January. Now, Chief Executive Alexandre de Juniac's looking at the airline's short and medium-haul operations. He wants to set up the major Paris hubs along established regional lines. For example, air staff in Marseille, Toulouse and Nice fly 20% more without overtime. The firm also wants to find its low-cost arm Transavia new destinations, along with developing its business-class offers, expanding and reorganizing its maintenance services, and simplifying its overall structure. Air France is also eyeing up the role of Europe's largest hub, Heathrow. It's planning a new €580 million terminal exclusively dedicated to long-haul services.
OK, let's pick up on one or two more of the day's business headlines for you now. Starting with Total, whose management is due to meet British safety officials later this Monday. That's to work out how to cap a huge gas leak at a North Sea rig. The French energy giant's platform has been shut down for more than a week since the blowout. Options include injecting mud to cap the well or drilling 2 relief wells to take the excess gas. But the second option is more expensive and could well cost the company around $3 billion.
Ireland's austerity plan's been dealt a blow by a tax rebellion. Nearly half of the Republic's 1.6 million households have refused to pay a new €100 property tax. It's the first serious revolt against the new government that needs to save another €9 billion this year to meet the terms of its bailout.
And German unions have lifted the threat of further disruption after agreeing a 6.3% pay rise for around 2 million civil servants. The deal was wrapped up after all-night talks that went on through the weekend. The pay rise will cost the government around 500 million euros. Germany's labour costs, seen as among the most competitive leading Eurozone countries, have recently risen by their fastest rate for a decade.
Now, it's a legacy of the US subprime disaster that 5 years on, 22% of homes are in negative equity, worth less than their sale price. But the slide in values hasn't helped. Millions of Americans remain locked out of the housing market due to ongoing credit problems. So the answer seems to lie in a growing boom for micro homes. Take a look.
Then a dollhouse. Lena's home measures in at 121 square feet, with room enough for only the bare necessities. Her last house, at 832 square feet, felt too big, and she decided to downsize, radically.
I scaled down to mostly the things that I needed or loved. And so it doesn't take me much time to deal with stuff.
Living small is also about living within their means.
Housing has become a source of immobility for people, especially in this economy. And I think that one of the spurs behind the small home movement is to provide the freedom and the flexibility to not have many of your housing costs, not have many of your personal costs associated with your housing.
At the peak of the housing boom in 2007, the average American home size was just over 2,500 square feet. Tiny houses, in contrast, tend to be smaller than 1,000 square feet. They may be cheaper on the whole, but the emphasis on design and quality materials actually make them more expensive per square foot.
Because we invested, I guess, maybe in quality instead of quantity, it turns out that we have a really nice kitchen and nice bathroom.
Getting financing and regulatory approval for such unconventional property can be an issue. Rob and Chloe got their mortgage through a cooperative bank, but another challenge awaits. Now they've got a baby on the way and plans for another. Rob and Chloe will soon find out if the traditional family can also fit into their unconventional home.
I think it's probably worth telling our viewers, Lorna, that here with an international newsroom like France 24, our American colleagues are horrified by the idea of a small house like that. Our producer just said he thinks that the Jeep in a Jay-Z video was bigger than that first house we saw, which is probably fair. We've seen 5 months of declines in the US house prices, never really recovered despite the fact that the economy is growing now. Nationwide, prices have fallen 34%, now back at 2002 levels. Perhaps the only bit of good news recently is that those declines for the last 5 months do appear to have stopped. We're seeing the US economy expanding. We're going to get construction figures out later this Monday that are likely to show a 0.8% rise, but that's hardly anything to write home about with such a low figure, but it is at least some growth in that US housing sector.
The houses themselves definitely aren't growing in size.
Indeed.
I have to say, some Parisian apartments are definitely smaller than that. We're quite used to small houses here in Paris. Well, thank you very much indeed, Owen, for that look at today's business news. And that's just about it from us for now. But don't go away. Stuart Norval will be here right after the weather with more news headlines. Do stay tuned.
Find out how the planet is doing, from global warming to pollution to sustainable development. We'll also tell you about solutions to keep our planet alive. Environment, every Saturday, 11:40 a.m. Paris time on France 24.